Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. You ready to go microscopic today?
I'm always ready to dive into the tiny world.
Well, perfect, because that's what we're doing today. We're talking about um, coordinated behavior
Oh,
in autonomous microscopic machines.
tiny robots working together.
Exactly. And it all comes from this research article called,
Oh yeah, this one's awesome.
Coordinated Behavior of Autonomous Microscopic Machines Through Local Electronic Pulse Coupling.
I mean, even the title is cool.
It is a cool title. I'll give you that.
Tiny robots.
Tiny robots working together. So you know where this research started. They looked at nature.
Oh, that makes sense.
Like, how do heart cells beat in sync? Or like, those fireflies that flash together. They wanted to
Yeah.
understand how systems synchronize naturally so they could apply those same principles to these little tiny robots.
It's such a cool approach, but you gotta think it's not easy. Existing methods for controlling microbots, like using magnets or complex wiring, not exactly practical when you're dealing with millions of these things.
Wow. Yeah, it'd be a nightmare.
It'd be impossible.
Yeah, a logistical nightmare for sure. So this research proposes something much more elegant.
Much more elegant.
They call it pulse coupling.
Pulse coupling, it's like game changer.
It is a game changer.
Yeah, it's all about mimicking like biological oscillators like you were talking about with the fireflies.
Right.
There's this model by Marolo and Strugatz. They made it a while back. And this research adapts it to the world of robots.
So each micro machine basically becomes like a tiny oscillator.
Exactly. It's like they have their own little internal clock.
Oh, wow.
And they send out these electronic pulses that influence their neighbors.
So they're like talking to each other basically through these pulses.
Yeah, like little nudges saying, hey, speed up, or slow down.
And that's how they all get in sync.
Yep. And the best part is they only need to connect locally. No more complex wiring schemes, which would be impossible at that scale anyway.
Right. I can already see how this is so much more scalable. So, okay, we have these tiny robots sending pulses. What do these things actually look like? I'm picturing something super sci-fi.
Oh, they are pretty sci-fi. Each one has a CMOS circuit, like a mini computer brain.
Oh, wow.
And they have an electrically actuated paddle for movement. And, of course, the ability to send and receive those pulses.
So these paddles actually move. How do they generate motion at such a tiny scale? I mean, that's incredible.
It is incredible. They use something called CAs.
CAs.
Yeah. It stands for surface electrochemical actuators. They're these super thin platinum films, like 7 nanometers thick.
7 nanometers.
Yep. And they expand and contract with voltage changes.
Wow. So that creates the motion for the paddles.
Exactly.
That's mind-blowing. So they actually built these things, like they actually made these micro machines.
Oh, yeah. They put them to the test.
So tell me about these tests. Did they actually get these robots to synchronize?
They did. They did some really fascinating experiments. One used 8 micro machines all in a line. At first, they were moving all out of sync.
Right.
But as soon as those pulses started going,
What happened?
they formed a metachronal wave. Just like dominoes falling one after another.
Whoa, seriously?
Seriously. And that's how you know the pulse coupling is working. It's synchronizing their movement at the microscale.
That's amazing.
I know, right?
Okay, so we've seen that this pulse coupling can actually synchronize these little robots. But how does it actually work technically? Like, what's going on inside these microscopic machines?
Okay, so we've seen that this pulse coupling can actually synchronize these little robots. But how does it actually work technically? Like, what's going on inside these microscopic machines?
Well, remember the CMOS oscillators we were talking about?
Yeah, like the tiny clocks.
Right. They're like tiny clocks, but they're designed to operate much slower than normal electronic circuits.
Oh, that makes sense. We're dealing with mechanical movement here, which is inherently slower.
Exactly. And to make sure these slow oscillators can talk to each other, they use something called a phase advancer circuit. A phase advancer? What's that?
So basically, when a micromachine gets a pulse from its neighbor, this circuit nudges its own internal clock forward.
So it's like one robot saying to the other, hey, speed up a bit.
That's a great way to put it. And the researchers found that these pulses always advance the phase, no matter when they hit during the neighbor's cycle.
So it's a very reliable system.
Very reliable. And that consistent phase advancement is what leads to the synchronization across the whole network.
Okay, so we know it works with a small number of microbots, but what about scaling it up? Can it handle larger, more complex networks?
That's the big question, right? And the researchers, they really pushed the limits. They connected more and more modules together, up to 16 in a linear array.
Wow, 16. And did they still synchronize?
They did. It took a bit longer, of course, for the whole system to settle down, but eventually all 16 modules locked onto the frequency of the leader.
Wait, leader. What do you mean leader?
Oh, yeah, so they designate one module in the network as the leader. It's the one with the fastest intrinsic clock. And all the other modules synchronize to its rhythm.
So it's like a conductor leading an orchestra, but at a microscopic scale.
Exactly. And they didn't just stop at linear arrays either. They tested all sorts of network configurations, loops, cross-shaped structures, even a 16-paddle micromachine shaped like a cross.
Wow, and it still worked.
It worked. It moved in this incredibly coordinated way. They even did simulations to explore even more complex network arrangements like branching networks and nested loops. It's like a microscopic ballet.
It's incredible how much control they have over these systems.
It is.
But what about the real world? Things aren't always perfect. What happens if there's like a disruption or a connection breaks? Can the system handle that?
That's a really important point, and the researchers definitely tested that. They found that the system is super robust. They even shocked the system with a voltage pulse, basically scrambling the oscillators.
Oh, wow. So like throwing a wrench in the gear.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what happened? They resynchronized.
No way.
Yeah. It was like they just shrugged it off and got back to work. They also tested what would happen if connections were broken in a synchronized array.
Oh, interesting. Did the whole thing fall apart?
Nope. The subgroups that were still connected, they just resynchronized internally, each following their own new leader.
So the system can adapt and reconfigure itself.
It's pretty amazing, right?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a system that's scalable, adaptable, and super robust. It's incredible. But what does this all mean for the future of microscopic robotics? What can we actually do with these things?
Now that's where things get really exciting. The possibilities are pretty much endless, but the paper highlights two main areas: tethered microbots and modal microbots.
Tethered microbots and mobile microbots. Okay, let's unpack those. What can you tell me about tethered microbots?
Well, imagine like a surface covered in all these microscopic machines, all anchored in place, and each one acting like a tiny little actuator, a tiny arm that can push or pull with crazy precision.
So like a microscopic conveyor belt.
Yeah, exactly. Think about like moving fluids around or sorting and assembling microscopic components or even interacting with individual cells.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Right. The possibilities are huge.
So what about the mobile microbots? What kind of applications can we think of for those?
Okay, so now picture this. You got a swarm of these little microbots, each one like a self-propelled unit swimming through a fluid.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Without coordination, they'd just be bouncing around randomly, right? But with this pulse coupling, they can move in formation and navigate complex environments or transport like a microscopic cargo as a group.
So like a fleet of microscopic submarines working together on a mission.
That's a great analogy. This could be huge for like targeted drug delivery. Imagine microbots carrying medicine directly to specific cells in the body.
Oh, wow, that's incredible.
The paper also talks about using them for microsurgery.
Microsurgery.
Yeah, swarms of microbots working together to do these super delicate procedures.
Wow, a whole new level of minimally invasive surgery.
Yeah.
I mean, the possibilities are really endless. So we've gone from individual microbots to these synchronized systems that can do all sorts of complex coordinated behavior. It's a huge achievement. But I can't help but think, what's next? What are some of the challenges in this field that still need to be figured out?
Well, miniaturization is still a big one. These microbots are already crazy small.
I know, right?
But ultimately, we want to make systems that operate at even smaller scales.
Like nanoscale.
Exactly. But to do that, we need new materials, new fabrication techniques. We got to figure out how to build circuits and sensors and actuators that can work reliably at those sizes.
So it's a materials challenge as much as an engineering challenge.
It is. And then, of course, there's the question of power. How do you provide energy to something that small?
Yeah, how do you keep these tiny robots running?
Yeah.
Especially if we want swarms of them working together.
Exactly. And control is another big one. How do you tell these microbots what to do, especially when you have swarms of them?
It's like programming a microscopic ballet.
That's a great way to put it. We need sophisticated algorithms and control systems that can handle all that complexity. And as the networks get bigger, we need to make sure they can deal with disruptions and errors and unexpected stuff in their environment.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
Yeah.
We started with these basic principles of pulse coupling, and now we're talking about all these incredible possibilities for synchronized microbots.
I know, it's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. From microscopic conveyor belts to tiny chemistry labs to targeted drug delivery and even cleaning up the environment, We're really on the verge of a microscopic revolution.
We are. It's so exciting to be following this field right now. The future is wide open.
Yeah.
And who knows what amazing things we'll be able to do with these little synchronized machines.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us into the world of microscopic machines. We'll catch you all next time on The Deep Dive.